Don't normally. Good afternoon, everybody. Bring the meeting to order. Just read out the routine notices prior to the commencement of the formal meeting. I've said good afternoon already. We're reminded that we will be using audio-visual system this afternoon, and the meeting will also be streamed live on YouTube. Members are asked to physically raise their hands in the usual way to indicate they wish to speak, and to use their microphones by pressing the button in front of you when speaking for the benefit of all present. Please switch your mobile phones to silent or off. I will now provide a reminder of the evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber, and then please reassemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist persons who require any assistance. Public recording of the meeting. There is legislation that allows the public to film, record, or use social media at a council meeting. This must not be done in a disruptive manner to the good order of the meeting, nor to include any filming or recording of the public seating area. And welcome to the members of the public present. We now move on to the agenda proper. Apologies for absence. Okay. Minutes, to confirm that the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of February are a correct record. Do I have a proposer? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Members are to declare any interest as appropriate in respect of items to be considered at this meeting. Are there any such declarations of interest? No now come on to item 4, matters referred from scrutiny committee. Now, apart from the scrutiny report on item 8, which is the intensive housing management service, now I believe there are no other items. So what I'm proposing to do is to hear from the chairman of scrutiny, Councillor Mike Brown. Forgot his name for a minute, and then to move straight into the agenda item. So I'll hand over to Councillor Mike Brown.
Thank you, Leader. I was having to think about what my name was there myself for a moment. You know, it's that time of day. Chair, you got a report in front of you from the scrutiny committee. In fact, it was a special scrutiny workshop that considered this matter on the 14th of February, and we received at that workshop a presentation on the housing review, the housing intensive housing management service review. Now, you'll see from the feedback that's in front of you that it was a very detailed and, I have to say, appropriately lengthy workshop. I mean, I think we spent a lot of time on it, quite rightly, because it is a very important matter. I don't propose to go through that feedback, you know, item by item. You know, you've had it, you've read it. I know it's been considered also as part of the preparation for your discussion on item 8 on this agenda. What I would like to say that in my opinion, and I don't think it's just my opinion, it's also the opinion of other scrutiny members who are at the workshop, that actually this approach represented an excellent example of how members and officers can work positively together on issues like this. I think it was a welcome opportunity to get into the detail with officers, and I hope the officers took from that meeting some useful points. In fact, I know they did, because some of what was discussed there has been incorporated into the report that's now in front of you tonight. So we found it very helpful, and we also recognised the seriousness of the matter, because we were talking about an important service to, in many cases, extremely vulnerable tenants for whom we have a duty of care. Now, you're going to consider the report and the recommendations on item 8. And as I've already indicated, I'm pleased that many of the ideas that came out of the workshop are incorporated into the report that's in front of you tonight. Finally, I'd just like to say, and it's in the comments from scrutiny, that the members of scrutiny were actually very impressed by the approach taken by the officers and the detail that was presented to us. And I'm sure the same has happened with Cabinet in the briefings you've had in the lead up tonight. So that's all I really want to say. The comments are there in front of you. As always, I'm happy to take any questions or on points of clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, have members any questions of Chair of Scrutiny and any points of detail? I don't think so. I think we've gone over it with a fine tooth comb now. So I hope you'll stay for the continuing discussion. Okay, so yes, we're going to move into item 8 straight away then, and I'm going to open up with a few comments of my own, which I've got written down here. Members will be aware that this review has been ongoing for some time, and I'm very pleased to recommend the report and all of the recommendations, and I will move those in due course. It sets out the outcomes of the review, and it contains recommendations for the future housing support arrangements within an independent living framework. The independent living framework will be further updated. It is simply intended to be a guide for tenants, future tenants, staff, and for us as elected members. It sets out how we will support tenants in the future, and how we will support incrementally, in terms of the advice from and guidance to tenants in our general housing needs area, a targeted support offer in housing allocated as sheltered housing, and these are listed in the report, and a slightly more enhanced offer alongside commission care and support at Gretton Court, which of course is not the main part of the report, but sits in parallel with the changes being made there. Moving to a much clearer position is an important part of the work that has been undertaken, and tenants' individual needs and choices are emphasised throughout, and the issue of affordability has been considered by all of us and has been uppermost in our minds. On affordability, I believe that the document describes our approach well, and in summary, it does the following. It phases in the new charges for new independent living support service over 2 years, increases the range and value of services that can be covered by housing benefit, and with further work being done to see if this can be improved even further. It provides a route for tenants in particular hardship to be supported on a case-by-case basis. And I know members will have other ideas around this as we move forward into the implementation phase following the consultation phase. There is still a lot to do, and following our decision this afternoon, there will be a formal period of meaningful consultation with all affected tenants before proposals are finalised and arrangements to implement the changes commence. The Director for Housing and Communities will have a bit more to say about this in a few moments. Now, as portfolio holder, I do wish to thank the Scrutiny Workshop and you, Chairman, for your consideration and feedback, which is reflected in the proposals to Cabinet. It has been, as you say, a very good example of the value of scrutiny, and has genuinely shaped and improved the final recommendations. I would say, in my long experience, this has been an exemplar of the way scrutiny and Cabinet can function for the benefit of the whole community. I'm keen to ensure there is also further reference to scrutiny as we implement the changes, to ensure that we do so in the most effective way possible. And should the Chair of Scrutiny wish to consider it, how we might add further value to the whole process. And I would be very happy to discuss that with the Chairman of Scrutiny in due course. Now, turning to the report itself, before asking the director to make her contribution, I want to say, obviously, Appendix B of the report is indeed the scrutiny report. Appendix A is the reference document that will guide the work. Sections 9 to 16 are really a wrap around the governance and due diligence, which all reports must have. Sections 4 to 8 are really the meat of the report. And of course, section 3 summarises the conclusions therein. I will now formally move the recommendations in the report, which appear at section 2, and I will invite the director to make any further comments on this subject. Thank you.
Brill, thank you, Leader, and thank you for your support as we've gone through the piece of work to get to the recommendations this evening. The Leader referred earlier to a period of consultation, and I just wanted to add a little bit more information in relation to that. This will not commence immediately, the reason being that we are still taking some further expert advice relating to housing benefit eligible tasks. It's really important that when we do the write out to tenants who would be subject to the Independent Living Support Service, that we have absolute accuracy around the support and contribution that those tenants could receive if they are eligible for housing benefit. That letter will trigger a 4-week consultation when we do send it out, and the report is clear that there is a mechanism to review that feedback and to consider it in a meaningful way before finalising recommendations for the service moving forward. And as the report sets out, the council then has the right to contact tenants again to make them aware of the changes that will be implemented. The phasing that has been introduced has responded to feedback received, and the report is also clear that we will support tenants adversely impacted or any vulnerabilities that we identify during the process. I did also want to draw members' attention to the recommendation relating to the improvements to the communal areas in those sheltered schemes, because that's something that came out from some of our wider engagement with tenants. We've realised through this process just how important those communal spaces are to our tenants. And it's a space that really those tenants come together and have a sense of community and want to be supported and want to be able to support each other. And so we were pleased to be able to build that into the report also. Finally, I wanted to reiterate that whilst the independent living framework is still being refined, this gives us an important opportunity to consider the feedback that we receive and any further refinements that members might like us to make. Really, the aim of that is to make sure that we are really clear about the support that we can provide as a landlord and how we go about that. It's really important that we can give that information to tenants, but also that we can be held to account as a landlord. And that's something I know that we all expect to be able to happen as we move forward. So that's a really important document, and you will see that reflected on our website. You'll see that given to our tenants. And it's a document that I would want us all to become really familiar with as we implement that over the next few weeks. In terms of next steps, we will, subject to your approval this evening, we will finalise an implementation plan. We will be briefing staff that will be involved in the next steps, whether that's implementing the new service or carrying out the exit arrangements on the existing service. We will take the expert housing benefit advice, as I've said, and we will make sure that we update members, both in terms of formal updates to you as cabinet members, but then making sure that as we roll out the arrangements that we are briefing ward members along the way. And again, that was a really important piece of feedback from the scrutiny committee. So I think that's all I've got to say at the moment. Happy to take any questions, but wanted to thank you again for your support, because it's been a really helpful part of the process. Thank you.
So before asking for a second, are there any questions or comments anybody wants to make? Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's been a very, very good report, and I'm glad we're at this point now. It's been a bit of a long journey, hasn't it? I'm very happy to see item 3.10. We're sort of going to, there's scope to review the properties which are not classed as in the original class of 83 properties. We can review those with our housing allocations policy, because it'd be a shame to let some of them slip away from what the intention was when these properties were built. And I think I'm quite happy to see that. So if that can be done, that's absolutely brilliant. But yes, great report, good policy. And yes, it's been a long old journey. Thank you.
I'd just like to say I do appreciate for our community that a change in charges can be quite worrying, and especially in the cost of living crisis. I think looking at that review that's being done by housing officers about the entitlement of each of the residents to housing benefit that will mitigate some of the increasing costs is really important. So I thank officers for that work. I'm really pleased to see the subsidised charges, and that as a cabinet, despite our really challenging financial situation across all aspects of the council, we've taken, or we're proposing to take, that stance, and I completely concur with that. And that was feedback from scrutiny to help residents prepare for that. Communal areas is so important. I have Gretton Court on my ward and Councillor Cumber's ward, and those communal spaces, I really was pleased to see that, because it's so important that that socialisation continues, and that for many of the health conditions our residents have, that socialisation can actually prolong their independent living. So thank you for the report, and I support those recommendations.
Any against? None? Okay, so that's the recommendations are passed en bloc. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mike. So we now move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the quarter 3 Treasury Management Report. And I believe that is Sarah and Dawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's well, yet again, I'm pleased to present this report because the team continue to get in exceptional returns on the council's investment. We remain top of the benchmarking group, and our average return is 5.65%. The property fund is the only one you'll notice within the report that's showing a notional loss of £210,000 at the end of quarter 3. But under the current accounting requirements, we don't need that to be recognised. However, to ensure financial prudence, we have set aside £120,000, which would partly offset that should we have to recognise that. And the reason we've done that is other councils haven't done that with some of their investments that are showing notional losses, which has perhaps put them in a very precarious position. So we're taking a very prudent approach to it in that we're putting some aside. It's quite a relatively small notional loss, realistically, in terms of the £2 million investment that's in that portfolio. It must be recognised that since the start of that property fund, since it was established, we've actually benefited from over £550,000 worth of income from that fund. So whilst it shows a loss at that notional loss at the moment, the benefits outweigh the costs. The finance team will continue to seek to maximise the high rate of term return moving forward. I spoke at the last full council meeting about interest rates being projected to sort of slow down towards the end of the year, and the team continually update me on how they're trying to lock in that higher return for the council. So I'm happy to move the report and support the recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2. They're just for noting, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody or comments? Well, I'll just add my comment, and great thanks for the team, and please pass it on to Natasha for the work she's done. Really good. It sort of hits you, doesn't it? Paragraphs 9.3 to 9.5, it really hits you. So can I, you've proposed it, I will formally second it. Show of hands, please. All those in favour of no, thank you. None against. That's carried. And we now move on to item 6, which is the risk management update, which is Councillor Glancy, Margaret Glancy, and Dawn, the dynamic duo again.
Well, thank you for that. Sorry. Yes, I'm happy to present this report setting out a 6-monthly update on risk management. A report will also be submitted to the Audit and Standards Committee later this month. Whilst there are some new risks that have been added to the strategic risk register, being the implementation of food waste, capacity to respond to a major incident, regulatory change in housing, and capacity to deliver a new Vision 36 and corporate delivery plan. I'm very happy to report that 2 risks have been removed from the strategic register as a result of the actions taken to mitigate, these being GDPR para at 5.8 should state recommendations have now been implemented, which is why this risk has been reduced, and the cost of living. The risks relating to future leisure provision and capacity to deliver services and projects have also reduced. This demonstrates a culture of risk awareness and mitigation and grip on risk management actions. I'm happy to move the report for noting.
Margaret,
I'd look for
any,
a second.
I'll second it, yes.
Thank you.
Give me a chance. Are there any
Sorry.
questions or comments to Margaret, or did,
Or
did-
Dawn.
we haven't asked Dawn if she would like to say anything? No, good. I'm pleased to hear that.
Happy.
Right, so we'll move to a vote then. All those in favour, please show. None against, that's carried. And we move swiftly on to item 7, which is quite a large item in itself. Now, I notice that Louise Parker is the report author, so I suppose Pranali is sort of vice Louise in a way, as the supremo for planning. I don't like to let her forget that. It's a sort of, it's an area that covers a number of departments, shall we say. But I see that it's Michelle and Margaret to lead on this. And I noticed that there's an action on me at 2.4 in the recommendations, or a note anyway. So who would like, is that Margaret, you're going to lead on it? Yep.
Yes, it's me again, I'm afraid. Again, I'm pleased to present this agenda item to Cabinet today. I would like to stress that Melton Borough Council is fully aware of the supportive role children's homes have as part of the social care provision for children, but we are also very aware of the need for the local context to be taken into account when making plans to establish successful children's homes. Considerations need to be both for the vulnerable young people and the local communities within which they are present. The planning guidance for applicants provides a mechanism whereby we can achieve a balanced approach that will enable children's homes and local communities to coexist. It seeks to avoid a disproportionate or unsustainable concentration of children's homes, potentially leading to imbalance in communities, to the detriment of local communities and the young people in care. Within our local plan, there is no particular policy relating to children's care homes. However, there are numerous policies which are relevant. These policies are noted on page 6 at item 9 of the planning guidance document, which is attached to the agenda item. I therefore have pleasure in the recommendations to proposed recommendations of 2.1 to 2.5 on your paper. Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Michelle?
Thank you. I just wanted to add, and the reason that you have me co-presenting the report is because this is not just a planning matter, is also a matter impacting on our communities. And I know that's something that we all really recognise. And it really matters to communities that we try to find ways to make sure that there is a proportionate approach that really supports that balance, as Councillor Glancy said. The challenge of having a number of children's homes in a concentrated area is not unique to Melton, but we are definitely seeing some particular challenges across the Melton Borough. And we spent a lot of time over the last few months looking at the different elements of regulatory regime related to this matter. So what I wanted to just comment on was the additional recommendations. So the 2.3 and 4 in particular, in which we will continue to reach out to and work with those national partners, so such as Ofsted, but also some of those government departments, because what we've been trying to do is really encourage those conversations to happen at a regional and national level. And sort of the gap in some of those conversations is where we found some of the challenges day to day, and we know that's had an impact on communities. I just wanted to also confirm, as the report says, whilst the report in front of members this evening doesn't create new guidance, it is a really important way to consolidate and then give that focus and clarity of expectation for applicants in future. And then just noting on 2.5, there is a request of a local plan review group, which is consider if there are any other policy options that can be considered in future as well. And I know that colleagues across the legal and planning teams are spending an awful lot of time looking at what other councils are doing, what works well, and what the constraints might be. So I guess my final message would be that, we take this seriously and we're trying to achieve that balanced approach. But this is an important piece of work that spans all of our areas. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on this subject? Yes, Sarah.
As you know, my professional career is often working with these children that are often in local authority care. So I'm pleased to say that, and thank you for the work that's gone into the guidance, because none of the recommendations diminish the care and support that we wish to offer these vulnerable young people in our community. Indeed, I hope that the guidance will actually enable the young people to be in the correct supportive environment that we feel that they deserve after the challenging start they've had to their lives. So I want to thank the officers for the work that's gone into that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to make a few comments of my own, because we must recognise that this council was encouraged, shall we say, to look into this more deeply because of a particular problem in one location in our borough. And I want to, in a public forum, make my thanks to the parish council concerned, and indeed to our Member of Parliament who got involved at a very early stage in considering this matter. It is a grey area, although there have been some suggestions that there are some straightforward solutions which we can draw from the experiences of other local authorities. Closer inspection reveals that this isn't quite the case, and that there is in fact some retrenchment in those other areas from the positions they've taken. Nevertheless, we must do what we can within the planning framework and by dialogue with others to improve the situation. Members will remember that I made a fairly trenchant statement about Ofsted at the last full council meeting. I won't repeat those words here because that would be silly, but they do have a responsibility, and that's why at 2.4 a letter will be sent to Ofsted urging them to think again about their role in approving or disapproving of a particular location for particular numbers of homes. And I think that's the crucial point. It's not that we object to a home, but it's a concentration of a plurality of homes in one small area, which is self-evidently unacceptable. And I hope that message will go out loud and clear. So I'll invite again if there are any other comments from any other members, or Michelle or Pranali. No, okay, or indeed the Chief Executive.
Thank you.
Right, we mustn't forget the Chief Executive. Okay, well, did you move that? I didn't quite hear. So I will formally second it, and I will call for a vote. All those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Thank you very much. That's carried unanimously, and that concludes the meeting.